everybody. I thought the easiest way to show you how to set yourself up at home was to actually demonstrate it. So I've got a load of things set up here today to show you how you can work in various different ways and try and avoid discomfort, because at the end of the day that's what this is about. This is me trying to advise you on how to stay comfortable when you're working in not ideal circumstances. So this next little section is for people who don't have a home office set up. So it's for as if you've been given a laptop and told away you go, work at home, and it's up to you really to try and find a way to work comfortably. Okay, so the default for that sort of way of working obviously is if you're given your laptop, and in the main for a lot of people it will be a case of sitting at the kitchen table, opening up your laptop, and away you go. So straight away you can see the problem with this is my neck posture. Is no matter how hard you try, is that over time you'll tend to lean forward, particularly because the screen's a little bit smaller, it'll start pulling you forward, and that means you get this kind of hunch in your neck, you've got your head pushed forward, and over time that will lead to tension and pain in your neck and across your shoulder, headaches, things like that. So although we all work like this now and then, and we all have periods when we maybe briefly work like this, it's not ideal for a prolonged setup. So to spend a whole working day typing away like this is definitely something that we want to try and avoid. And there's different ways that we can do that. The main thing that we want to do is raise the screen. So obviously once we raise the screen, we might need extra bits of kit, or we do need extra bits of kit to make that work. Okay, so I'm going to raise the screen now. Okay, so we're back, and as you can see, I've raised my screen, my laptop, on a few family favourites here. The obvious issue now is that although the screen is at a better height and it's not pulling my head down and forward, is that I can't type like this all day. So my hands are going to be raised like this. It's going to create problems for my shoulders. So obviously I can't spend a lot of time typing like that. So what we need in that situation is to set ourselves up with a little external keyboard and a mouse. So here we go. So now we've got not a bad setup at all really. So we've got our keyboard. Fortunately this table and chair combination is a good height for me, so my forearms are nice and horizontal. I'm typing away. Screen's at a reasonable height, and I've got my mouse here. I am left-handed, I'm not just cheating for the video. So here we go. So here we are working away. And this is actually not a bad setup. So providing you take a reasonable number of breaks, sort of hourly breaks throughout the day, this is going to be quite good. I mean, the screen is a little bit smaller than it would be at an office desk, but we can have a look at that. We can have a talk about options for potential ways that you can introduce bigger screens in due course. So that's if you don't have a laptop stand. But obviously we have these fabulous bits of kit, the laptop stands, which I'll just demonstrate here. So this is a Ergonomics Cafe uprise stand, which is my own personal favourite. So incredibly thin, really light, lovely piece of kit. So we just set that up like this, and there you go. So we're back to having our screen at a nice height. It's got a nice small footprint. Really excellent bit of kit. There's a lot of different laptop stands around. I would generally recommend Ergonomics Cafe just because they're great design. Also Baccarel-Cousin is also producing some good laptop stands. So there we have it. So if you're able to set yourself up like that with your screen raised, then that's great. That's really going to help your neck. Next thing to have a think about is your chair, because obviously you're not going to be sitting necessarily in a nice adjustable office chair. So the first thing to think about really is back support. Very often these chairs don't have well moulded back supports, so you might need to add a little bit of something extra to support your lower back. So generally, if you experiment with a few cushions, you'll be able to find something which will help you a little bit. So that's a great cushion here. It's a good size, it's not too big. It's not pushing me so far forward that I'm losing my leg support. So that's a good cushion. Personally, I tend to use one of these wobble cushions just because I happen to have a few around the house usually. And so here I am with this lovely pink one. There you go. And that's really comfortable. I can really press back against that. It gives me a bit of movement. Really cheap, really inexpensive bit of kit. So really helpful. So the other thing to think about as well is if your arms are not at the correct height. So for someone who's a bit shorter, it could be that they find themselves in this kind of situation at the kitchen table, because obviously the chair can't be raised so their arms are in the right, the forearms are nice and horizontal. So in that situation, you can use a cushion. It doesn't have to be a wobble cushion. You can use a cushion just to lift yourself up a little bit back to a good height. Similarly, if you're particularly tall and find that when you're sat without a cushion, just in a dining chair, you find that your forearms, when they're horizontal, are kind of hovering above the table. What you can do in that situation is start raising up the bits and pieces. So you can start raising up your keyboards, you can raise up your mouse, and you can even raise up your laptop stand. Or if you're not using a laptop stand, you can just increase the lift and just add books or boxes, whatever it needs to be, to create a good height for your screen. Okay, so that's sitting at a table. And the next thing we're going to look at is if you don't have access to a dining chair, dining table, we're going to have a look at how you can set yourself up comfortably, or at least as comfortably as possible, because obviously that's not an ideal situation, but we're going to have a look at that now. Okay, so here we are on the sofa. Unfortunately for quite a lot of people, this is going to be the sort of default. This is what they're going to have available, which is not ideal. But I'm going to talk through how we can make some adjustments just to improve things. Okay, so as you can see, the reasons for it not being particularly ideal is this long seat pan and the lack of really good firm lumbar support. So your back's going to form that sort of that C curve in the lumbar spine, which you really want to avoid. And it also means that if the laptop's on your lap, then your neck's sort of forward, your head's forward, and your neck's bent. So that's going to cause those kind of neck tension issues that I spoke about earlier. So again, these are real postures that you want to avoid where at all possible. So what can you do? So the very least is to have a cushion. Here's one we prepared earlier. Here we go. So you may need to play around with cushions, use something different, maybe something even slightly bigger. Cushions up the top as well if you really feel like your upper back's not supported. So have a play around with what you can use. You can use rolled up towels as well, so even if you don't have cushions available, you could use a rolled up towel instead. But then you've got the screen height issue. So the screen is still on the low side. So there are bits of kit that can help, but if you don't have them, what I would tend to recommend is trying to use what other bits of things that you have around. So in this case, I've just raised the screen a little bit, just on a big book and a cushion. This pretty much recreates some of those kind of lap desk cushions that you see for sale. And here we've got this, it's actually pretty adjustable, so you can adjust the tilt of the laptop into a reasonable angle so that I'm not sort of bending my wrists. It's raised the screen, so it's still not perfect by any means, but it has meant there's going to be a little bit less neck flexion, which over the course of the day will improve things. Definitely if you're working in this situation, it's so important to take really frequent breaks. I'd say no more than about half an hour working in this sort of arrangement, and you might want to take breaks even more frequently than that, and you might want to alternate to standing, which is something I'm going to talk about in a little bit. There are also bits of kit that can really improve things even more significantly. So we have one here, just an example. Happened to randomly pick up in TK Maxx. But here you've got a scope for adjustment. So there's a lot of different types of these, a lot of different options. And here you've got a scope to sort of really raise the screen up, so it's significantly higher now. But at the same time, my forearms, yes, they're angled up, but my wrist posture's still good. I've still got a good straight wrist posture here. The keys are nicely presented to me. And angled towards me, and I've even got a little tray here for the mouse, which I could use, or even for a notepad. So not a bad setup actually, and it can really extend the amount of time that you can work on the sofa. Not that you'd necessarily wanting to do that, you're still wanting to get up and take breaks, but you know, you can put it down fairly easily and you can move around. So yeah, a great bit of kit, and actually quite versatile. It can help you stand at, for example, kitchen worktops, which we'll look at in a minute. And work quite comfortably. So that's that. If you're working on sofas, best avoid it if possible, but as I say, there are things that you can do to improve the situation. Okay, here we are. We're going to have a look at some standing work positions now. As I say, none of these setups that I've talked about so far are ideal, so it is a good idea if you can and if you feel fit and able to alternate to standing occasionally. You might want to look at trying to aim for sort of the 40-20 ratio, 40 minutes sitting to 20 minutes standing, but it really depends on, whether, for example, you're on a sofa, in which case you might want to alternate faster. But the main thing is that it's just that there is an option, so we're going to talk through how you can do that. So obviously the kitchen worktop is quite an obvious place to initially stand and work, but as you can see, if I just use it as it is in its kind of raw form, the screen is really quite low and the keyboard's too low. You can see that bend in my wrists, so we're trying to avoid those postures. What we want is that nice neutral posture as far as we can achieve it. So what can we do here? So at the very least, what we can do is bring in, again, the trusty board games, or books or magazines, whatever you have to hand, just to try and make that forearm nice and horizontal when you're typing, so you're not getting that bend in the wrist. Obviously the screen is still quite low, so again, this is a good kind of very quick arrangement, maybe for 5 minutes or so. If your back's feeling a little bit tired and sore, then this just gets you standing, being able to move about, but it is still compromising your neck, so it's not ideal for the long term, but it's a good alternative. And if you happen to have, or if you're able to get hold of one of these great little bits of kit, you can see how much this actually improves the situation. Here we go. So here we go. So again, my forearms are angled up a bit, but my wrist posture, again, is pretty reasonable. And now I'm looking at the screen, and I barely have to tilt my head down. It's not an ideal posture position, but it's still reasonable. So here we are, typing away, feeling pretty comfortable. So that's it. So those are two options. Now what I'm going to do is bring in the ironing board. I had to ask my wife where this was. I had no idea. I haven't seen it for years. So anyway, here we are again. But we're back to kind of square one where we were with the kitchen worktop. Funny enough, it almost exactly matches. So again, if you're using this, I'd say the best thing is to bring in something that raises the laptop, or if you need to, so that your forearms are horizontal and you're working. Make sure you tilt the screen back as far as you can, really, because the screen is quite low. And the more you tilt it back, the less inclined you'll be to sort of lean over it or crane your head down. So here we are, typing away. So not ideal, but if you're stuck with the choice of working on a sofa or nothing, actually this might seem like nothing, but it gives you that option to stand and work and really improve things for your back particularly. Okay, now we're going to have a look at one more option for standing. We're going to pop upstairs to do that. Okay, so here we are. Actually, chests of drawers can offer really good opportunities for standing and working. So again, in this case, it's actually that bit higher than a kitchen worktop, so you can work reasonably comfortably. I mean, my arms are angled down a little bit. It's obviously that's going to depend on your height, whether that's an issue for you. But here, yeah, again, it's pretty reasonable. I can work away. I've got my screen tilted down. The screen's not in an ideal position at all for my neck, but certainly for my back, this offers real potential. You could even improve things much more if you've got a laptop stand. But here we go. I mean, that's not a bad standing setup. You've even got something to lean against if you've had a big dinner. So here we go. You've got your screen at a reasonable height. You've got your keyboard here. Everything's pretty well set up, really. So again, it's one of those things that none of these setups are perfect, but it's about thinking about how you could set yourself up with that nice neutral position. So as far as possible, not tilting your head down, keeping your forearms horizontal, or making sure that your wrists aren't bent, and making sure that your back's well supported if you're sitting down, and just alternating between them. So over the course of the day, what I'd recommend is just trying to cycle between positions, because each position puts strain on a slightly different area of the body. So it's a good idea just to keep alternating as much as you can, really. Okay, so here we are again, back at the kitchen table, back to sort of where we started, really. There was one other option that I wanted to just to have a look at. It might not be a possibility for everyone, but it did occur to me, if you've got an old TV of a reasonable size, probably no more than about sort of 27 inches, anything less than that is going to be pretty reasonable, then it might be possible for you to plug it in if it's got an HDMI socket. Okay, so what you can do is actually use a TV, a reasonable size one. I'm not suggesting you use a sort of 60-odd inch widescreen, but you can use a TV if it's got an HDMI input as a monitor. You might have to tweak the settings a bit, reduce the brightness or the backlight, and change the sharpness settings, things like that. You can have a play around with it. So here we are. So we've got a pretty reasonable setup here, but the screen height is still not ideal. Okay, and we can see how that is. Okay, yeah, even better. So you can just keep raising the screen until you've got a nice sort of horizontal eye line level with the top, or a few inches down from the top. So I'm not quite there yet. Could probably do with putting another box underneath. And there you go. You can carry on working with your laptop keyboard. Okay, so that's it really for tips and advice on how to set up and work comfortably from home. Hopefully some of those things have helped. Hopefully they're things that you can try and do to improve your posture and avoid aches and pains. And so that's all really from me from the house. So stay safe.